In this video, we will be going over the metabolism experiment. For this experiment, you will need the following: yeast, sodium phosphate, glucose, sodium hydroxide, and phosphoric acid to adjust the pH of your buffer. You will need a pH meter, which you will need to calibrate. You'll need a beaker with water. In this case, we'll be making a 100 ml buffer. And lastly, you'll need a stir plate and a stir rod. To begin this experiment, you will need to use the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation in order to determine how much sodium phosphate you need to add for your buffer. Also, make sure you measure out the appropriate amount of glucose. For your first step, turn on the stir plate. Now you will add your sodium phosphate. After adding the sodium phosphate, you will now add your glucose. Once both have been added, allow this to dissolve. Now that we've let everything dissolve, the next step is to check the pH of your buffer. To do this, we'll be using the pH meter. The first thing you want to do is wash the electrode. If your pH is not at pH 7, you can adjust the pH by adding base or acid. You want to do this 1 drop at a time. Make sure that in between each drop, you make sure to check the pH. If you are still not at a pH of 7, add base or acid again, 1 drop at a time, until you reach that pH of 7. Once your buffer is at the correct pH, you now need to wash your electrode. Once you finish washing the electrode, you now want to place it back in a pH of 4. Now that the buffer is ready, you can add your yeast. Once your yeast is added, wait 15 minutes. Around the 15-minute mark, you should see your solution foaming. At this point, you want to take 200 microliters of your solution and add it to the NMR tube. You want to make sure that the NMR tube is vertical, and that you add the 200 microliters very slowly. Your solution may get stuck. If this is the case, tap the NMR tube on the lab bench gently. Keep adding the solution and tapping your NMR tube gently on the lab bench until all the solution has reached the bottom of the NMR tube. Once it's reached the bottom of the NMR tube, you now want to cap your NMR tube. Now that you've capped your NMR tube, you need to label the NMR tube. When labeling the NMR tube, make sure you write directly on the tube and do not put a piece of tape on the tube. Once this is done, give the NMR tube to your TA.